Welcome to TruthStream, and today we are here with CR Stewart, and we're very excited to have him because he's a fellow creative, an author, and he's got a project that is not only a series of books, but will be a series of films. And what I think is really cool and really important is that it's going to be it's a play. And kids can bring it into their schools, or the teachers or the parents, however. So without further ado, welcome to the show, and we're very happy and honored that you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be on. It's great.
Absolutely. Well, where should we start? Probably a little bit. I mean, you're a California dude. Give people a little about your background.
Yeah, maybe
I'll do a quick overview.
Yeah.
For your audience, and then we can pull on any of those threads. I like to say. So I'm originally from Newport Beach, California. I was back east in Wellesley, Massachusetts for 16 years. It's where I did my undergraduate in British literature, European history, and then went on to grad school, and then MBA, and then actually I got into investment banking, which is funny. And but I was always a creative at heart, and I was kind of dying to get back into the creative world. And it was 12 years ago. Sent down to a really boring seminar, Providence, Rhode Island. I think it was insurance, had to go. Started to drift, started to doodle, and had this idea for, Britfield and the Lost Crown, and went home that weekend and literally just on one piece of paper, I just kind of started outlining bullet points. It just was kind of my moment. I just saw this whole story and I thought, gosh, that'd be so much fun to write. And it's about, it takes place in present time in England, starts up in Yorkshire, Northern England, at this horrible orphanage called Weatherly Orphanage. It's about Tom and Sarah, two 12-year-old orphans. Tom's been an orphan his whole life. He's been at Weatherly for 6 years, and this is the year he's going to escape, but he's not going anywhere without his best friend, Sarah. Somewhere along the lines, they commandeer a hot air balloon, but they're relentlessly chased by the illustrious detective Gowerstone. And that's kind of what it started out. And I thought, and I lived in England off and on for about 2 years as a British literature major. So, the thing you learn about writing is you write about what you know, and you write about what you love. And I knew England really well. I loved England. I thought, what a great place to start at least the first book. And, it starts up in Yorkshire, and then Oxford, and then Windsor, and then London, and then finally Canterbury. And so I sat down. It took me 4 years, 2,500 hours just to write book one, Britfield the Lost Crown. And when I was writing it, I wasn't thinking series. You know what I mean? I wasn't thinking novelist. I was just thinking, hey, fun story. And then by the time I got done with it, I thought, I got at least 3 good books here. And then it went from 3 to 5 to 7. And then so we officially launched in August 2019, book one. And so from my concept and that idea to launching was over 10 years. 10 years of hard work, discipline, frustration, rejection, doubt, you name it. But I stayed the course. I stayed focused. I fought the good fight. I got up every morning and I did what I could that morning. You know what I mean? They see as far as you can see, and then when you get there, you can see farther. And so, and I really believed in it, and it was just a great idea. And so since then, it's become a national bestseller. It's one of the most awarded books in children's fiction, and we're actually in the top 1% of all books ever published in history within the same time frame. We've knocked it out of the park. We launched book 2, which takes place in France, Britfield and the Rise of the Lion, in 2021. That's 474 pages. Now Tom and Sarah 13. And then behind me last year, you can see the poster. We launched Britfield and Return of the Prince, takes place in Italy. And Tom and Sarah now 14. That's 575 pages.
Wow.
That's a big one. And then I'm writing book 4 right now. It's called Britfield and the Eastern Empire. It takes place in Eastern Europe and Russia. Book 5 will be Asia. Book 6 will be South America. And then book 7 will be the United States. And by then, Tom and Sarah are 18. And so it's a worldwide, fast-paced, Bond meets Bourne meets Narnia series. But what's great about it is it takes place in real time, present time. I don't use any of the devices like magic, witchcraft, occultism, supernatural powers, demigods, superheroes. I don't use any of that. I make them as authentic as I can. And they're based on family, friendship, loyalty, and courage. And I think as children, as adults are reading it, they're learning about geography, art, architecture, and culture. And we're hitting the 4 C's: creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. So these are in all the books. Our youngest reader is 7, our oldest reader is 93, and 55% of our reading audience are adults.
Well, you found all of this success while managing to stay clear of the Hollywood agenda.
Yeah, I have.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because I know you guys cover a lot of it, but I I started, if you will, waking up about 12 years ago, and since then I've been relearning history. That's what I like to tell people. I've been relearning history for 12 years, and it's quite interesting with this series because in book 2, I really pull the curtain and expose a lot of the stuff that's going on right now, and I do it in book 3 and book 4. And I don't do it because I'm trying to do it. It fits this whole royal mystery and the Britfields and Tom's connection to that, and who are the Britfields, and why were they usurped, and why were they kept from the true royal position, and who's controlling what goes on, and it's funny too, I was talking to a good friend of mine today because we talk about movies and films. He worked for Salem Media Group, so we did interviews all the time, and it was fun. We would do our top 10 favorite movies or our top 10 action movies, and so we're big fans and stuff. But we were talking about that today, and I lost my train of thought. Sorry, go ahead.
It's funny. I think it was just earlier this week, I had this realization that my brain has been stuck in problem solving mode 24/7. I find it really difficult to spin down and go to sleep. And the one thing that takes me out of problem solving mode is fiction, storytelling. It's true for everyone, and it's got that therapeutic value to it. So I can't wait to read your stories for that reason, for sure.
Oh yeah, honestly, and I say that it's just like I'm really an adult writing fabulous adult fiction for kids. You know what I mean? Like, so you guys will love it because it's fun and it's interesting and it moves fast, and it's like book 1's 384 pages. I've had 12-year-olds that have read it in 5 hours. Like I said, our oldest reader is 93. I get feedback from around the world from adults all the time. A couple months ago, I remember I got some feedback from a woman like in her 50s in the Netherlands, and we're shipping books out to the Netherlands. And she's like, absolutely love the Britfield series. She goes, I've never read anything like it. And someone that's a reader and getting that's a huge compliment. Are you kidding me? Like, what's new under the sun? What can I write? And so comments like that's amazing. I'll never forget a woman in Arizona in her 40s. She's a homeschooler, and she goes, just absolutely love Britfield. She goes, just got done with book 1, loved it. She goes, I've been in search of just good quality content. And she goes, it reminded me of Oliver Twist, Les Miserables, and Sherlock Holmes. And I thought that was cool. And then we had feedback from a 14-year-old in Virginia that loves the series. She just got done reading Britfield and the Return of the Prince, book 3, and she goes, "You're now up there with Lord of the Rings." And
wow,
right? And it's like, to me,
what a compliment. That's huge.
That's huge.
From a 14-year-old that's extremely well read, right? And she's read all the classics, and that's who I'm competing against in some ways. Right. And to say that I'm now up there in the Lord of the Rings, but yet I didn't have to, if you will, go down that avenue and create that whole world of mysticism and magic and demons and all this other stuff, that I could still carry that story and the adventure and the excitement with not compromising anything, and just being as real to the scenes. And it's hard. To me, it's harder fiction to write, because if I'm writing the world of Britfield, and I can use those devices, then I can do anything I want to at any time, but I've written myself into corners many times because I'm trying to make it as authentic as real. Like, I have to figure out, how do you break in? I'll just share some stuff with book 4, but they're trying to break into this place in Prague, actually Prague Castle. One of the scenes is in Prague, gorgeous, the castle, trying to break in. And so I've got to figure out, how do you break in there that makes sense, that's realistic, because they're trying to actually take back something that belongs to the Britfields, and it's really cool and stuff. And so I'm doing research all the time, and like floor plans and like devices and stuff like that. And of course it's it's still fiction. I have fun with it, you know what I mean? But it's like it has to make sense. And it's like, how big is the police department, or or how fast do they respond, or how long is it from this place to this place, or how long does it take a train to go from Prague to Warsaw? And do they have a fast train, or how many stops does it have? And I mean, you name it, and I'm doing research. And it's like, anyone that was like me watching my Google searches would just be going, whoa, like, it's like over here, like different types of weapons. And then like over here, it's like scuba diving equipment. And then over here, it's like, like C-40 jets, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm doing all that kind of research, and it's fun. And I'm not drowning it out in details, but I'm trying to make it as realistic as possible. And I think as a writer with fiction, yeah, you can suspend reality a little bit. You know what I mean? You could get away with it. You can bend it a little bit, but it's like, you don't want to sit there and say, oh, come on, or this again, or that doesn't make any sense. Or wait a second, they were they were there and now they're here. How's that like, you know? So
my first attempt at writing a script was it started out planning a heist, you know, just hypothetically planning a heist, and I thought, I wonder if this would work, and I got deeper and deeper and deeper into it, and I thought this might make more money as a movie than an actual heist, and it's I started in on the script, never finished it, but yeah, it's fun. You're right about the red flags on a Google search, so that's hilarious.
Yeah.
But the world needs adventures, you know. I mean, that's, maybe I'm just speaking to my own tastes, you know, but I just love going on an adventure. That's the beauty of these books and movies. And
absolutely. I mean, you hit on the point.
Was huge as a kid, and the latest Indiana Jones was
I didn't even say it.
It was depressing, you know. It's like,
wasn't it? Oh,
this end up like this.
I know, and it's great you mentioned the first Indiana Jones, because I think it's hard for us to gauge the Britfield series in the sense of like, what do you compare it to? Because there's not a lot out there. In some ways, it's a sort of a new level of fiction, and it'd be similar to probably Charles Dickens. I'm a big Charles Dickens fan, only in the sense that, you know, he wrote from the heart. He wrote you know, historical fiction, stuff that was happening right there, current times. You know, real characters, real events, real situations, and it has comparisons to C.S. Lewis and Narnia. I was very influenced by him, of course. And then, you know, I love James and the Giant Peach, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Those are the books that inspired me. But there's a great comment by Beverly Clearley, and she's the author of Runaway Ralph or The Mouse and the Motorcycle, classic. And she said, if you ever walk into a library or a bookstore and you don't find the book you're looking for, write it. I love that. And so that's what I did. I wrote a story with Britfield the Lost Crown. I wrote a story that would just be fun. You know what I mean? The wonderment of being a kid again, and just fun. You know, I wasn't writing it was trying to be creative or trying to push some kind of message or something. I just wrote a fun, exciting, fast-paced story. And as a footnote, when I started writing it, I just came off doing a binge watch of 24, all 6 seasons in 3 weeks.
Well, you know, I want to talk about that, like your message. We talked a little bit in the pre-chat just to kind of gauge, you know, a little bit about you. And what I think is great is that you're inspiring people. There's this opening now, as far as, you know, not doing anything with a weird negative agenda, and that there's going to be a real need for material, etc. I feel like I'm doing that with some of the stuff I do with my music and videos and stuff. And it's so great to see another creative and have someone on the show such as yourself. So maybe you could say some inspiring words for people about this opening that exists, and to, you know, if they're aware of what's going on in the world, which our viewers are, give them a little you know, insight into that.
Love to, yeah. And I think and I've said this before, but there is an 85% worldwide gap for family focused quality content. 85%, massive audience. No one's buying the crap that's out there, what Hollywood's peddling, or the television series, or these agendas, or all the statistics are bogus. You know, it's like 30% really like, no, they don't. Nobody likes this stuff. It's crap. It's unnatural. It's disgusting. It's filthy. It's all of that. And I'll say it, you know, because I can't help but to say it. And so, you know, people are in search of great content. And that's how people are like finding Britfield and the Lost Crown. I mean, everything we've done in the last 4 years has really been a soft launch. We go global next year, starting in January. And that's where things will really start to take off. And we can talk about that. But I say this to inspire, you know, anyone out there that's a creative that wants to be a part of it. You know, instead of sitting here complaining about how bad the school system is, change it, or homeschool your kids. When we talk about education, or spend some time with them. You can't afford not to spend time with them. Have discussions with them. Bring creativity into your home. Start doing creative exercises with them. I think the greatest thing you could do with your kids, you know, is sit around and write a book with them. You know what I mean? Like every Saturday from 12 to 3, that's our time. And you make it fun, and maybe it's pizza day or something. And you guys, you know, you start, you know, and there's plenty of like framework out there, you know, like just to help guide you, you know, like how do you write a novel, or what are some of the key points, or, you know, plot point 1 or whatever, and just have fun. It's not about that you're going to get it published, and maybe you will. By the way, by the way, the author of Winnie the Pooh that started, these fun little stories to put his son to bed at night, that's an $80 billion enterprise. $80 billion from some simple stories that he was telling his kid at night, so you never know what will come from it. But just have fun, do these kind of things. I come to writing from a script writing background. So I was lucky and I was fortunate. One wouldn't think the transition, and it's very different. I mean, a script and a novel is night and day. But what I learned from script writing is I learned the 3-act structure. I learned economy of words. I learned start on the action, leave on the action, keep it tight, plot points, midpoint, all of that. And so when I was starting book 1, I mean, it was consciously in my mind. I wasn't thinking like, okay, I'm going to write this 3-act structure. But it's funny, like my favorite scene in book 1 is Windsor Castle, when they crash land the balloon in Windsor Castle. How cool is that? An orphan one day in a horrible place in Yorkshire, and the next day spending the night in Windsor. How cool is that, right?
So cool.
And how much fun is that? But it was funny because it is a huge revelation, a big twist there. But it hit right the midpoint, and I was very excited about that. But there's huge opportunity out there. Don't feel daunted by it. You know what I mean? Everything has shifted, especially in the last 3 to 5 years, and especially starting in 2020. Where a lot of things have been exposed. A lot of people are waking up, and we feel that we're not so isolated anymore, and we're forming together as groups and teams. And if you're a writer, write. And there's so many different avenues to get your book and novels out there. You don't need the traditional system. The traditional system's so bunked. You realize that out of every 100 books that are published, 97% or 97 out of 100 books fail to make a profit. You realize that most published books sell anywhere from 3 to 500 in their lifetime, and if it sells 2,000 books, it's considered doing well, and 8,000 to 10,000 is a bestseller. I mean, the numbers are crazy, and it's because it's the industry and they own it. And you're getting pennies on the dollar, for every book you sell through this nonsense. But I was thinking about it, like as an actor, you guys, I know one of you is into the acting, and I love that. And my first official acting was in Laguna Playhouse. In backstage and then on stage, just small little role, wonderful thing. But there's so many opportunities. And if you're an actor, you want to get into acting, it's just like, forget Hollywood. You can do your own productions, you can do your own plays, start small, don't be in a hurry. Anything of quality takes time. And I was just thinking about this, like I love that play Love Letters, if you're familiar with it. And I first saw it 30 years ago at the Cannon Theater with Matthew Broderick and Helen Hunt. It's a very simple play with 2 actors that sit at different desks and read these letters back and forth as their kids all the way through adulthood. It's a beautiful little play, very simple to put on. And it's like, when I was in Wellesley, like, a decade ago, I thought, I'd love to do that play. And so guess what? I did. I bought the rights to put it on for 1 night, or no, 2 nights. I got the beautiful auditorium at a community college in Wellesley, and invited all my friends, hired an actress, rehearsed it, and we put it on. And it was one of the greatest things and moments. I didn't have thousands of people. I didn't have huge write-ups, but it was just, I'm just using that as an example, that it was like, I just said, why not? You know what I mean? And I love that play, and I'd love to be in that play. And I did it. And it, it cost me a couple $1,000s. It wasn't, you know what I mean? Like when it was all said and done. But oh my gosh, what a memory. And I say that to say that if you're an actor, it's just like, get like-minded actors together and start, putting, maybe it's a favorite play that you want, rehearse it and then put it on somewhere. It could be at a church over a night or a weekend, or it could be a small little theater that they'll rent out to you, and invite your friends and build on that and build on that and build on that and see where it goes and see what happens, and then start writing your own stuff. And there's so many things you can do, but I tell you something, it's not going to happen overnight. And every overnight success, we've talked about this before, takes between 1 to 2 decades. And what you see in Hollywood and with the actors, and oh my gosh, look, just won an Oscar, and oh my gosh, they're so young. And it's like, number one, it's all paid to play. Most of them are insiders in the industry. We're born into it, and most of them aren't talented. But with that, in all fairness, most of them have been in the game for over 10 years, and that's what you don't see. You don't see that when they were like 8 years old, they were going out for commercials, and for every 100 commercials they auditioned for, they got 1. And you know what I mean? And rejection, but they stayed in the game. And the next year they got 2 commercials, and then they got a bit part in this program. And it took them 10 years to get to that point, 15 years to get to that point. And they lived in failure and rejection. Nothing is overnight. And so you do it because you love to do it. I write because I love writing. You act because you love acting. And if the benefits come, and you get a great movie role, or you win an Oscar. And I wouldn't even want an Oscar anymore, but you know what I'm saying? It takes time. Yeah. I can't hear you.
Sorry, we have a on the topic of the play, what I wanted to
Yeah.
ask, what's really exciting about this is that people, if they're interested, they can go to your website, they can click a button, and they can order this in a play format. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came to be and any insight you have on that? And people can bring this into their own school and do a production, whether it's kind of more of a minimum one or one with all the bells and whistles. Please talk about.
It's interesting too, because when we kicked off Britfield Lost Crown, we kicked off a national school tour. So I drove 9,000 miles. I visited 23 states, presented to over 200 schools in front of more than 40,000 students. And it was done in different sections, all the way up to Seattle, all the way across to Spokane, and then all the way to Chicago, all the way down to New Orleans, all the way up to Memphis, Tennessee. Spent a month in Texas, just driving around, going to all these different schools. It was fantastic. And it was actually at the first school that we ever started in Mission Viejo. And we went there the first year, and then I went back the next year because we did it again. And I was leaving, and the theater director, Michelle Shoemaker, said to me, she goes, "You ever think of turning Britfield Lost Crown into a play?" And I said, no. It's like, I thought movies, television, board games, I got it all. You know what I mean? I'm like, a play? No. But it's stuck. You know what I mean? It's stuck. And it's like, and so 18 months ago, I guess about 2 years ago now, we greenlighted, and we said, we're going to take Britfield Lost Crown, the novel, 384 pages. We're going to turn it into a theatrical play specifically for elementary and middle schools. And it was based on so many reasons. Number one, just like what we're doing with Britfield Lost Crown, we're trying to bring quality content back into the schools. And so what you have with the theater programs is you got 40 or 50 of the same regurgitated plays or musicals. 80% of it's musicals, and there's nothing wrong with musicals, but when you do a musical, you're alienating 80 to 90% of kids that just want to go out for theater. And just because kids want to go out for theater doesn't mean that they want to be professional actors. Are you kidding me? But it's everything that and we can talk about this because theater is amazing. It's so much fun. It's so exciting. And I'll be honest, at 12 years old, I wouldn't have gone near it. I was terrified. But for the kids that want to go out, it's incredible. You're working as a team. You have responsibility. You're memorizing lines. You're telling a story. You're showing up in front of an audience. You're performing. You're walking on your cues. It's everything about it. It's an amazing. Some of my best memories is from my time at Laguna Playhouse 35 years ago. You know what I mean? We actually did It's a Wonderful Life, but it was a musical, and it was first time turned into a musical and stuff. And I was just backstage during Christmas, but it was amazing. And then we did Beyond a Reasonable Doubt, and so I got a small role in that, and it was incredible. We're working with this great director and stuff, and those are some of my best memories. And so so we turned it into that. And what's great about the play is many things. Well, number one, it takes place in present time. So it's very easy to costume, and it's realistic. So it's not fantasy. It's not Frozen. It's not Aladdin, which is all mysticism and magic, just another way for them to get it into the schools. And this whole agenda is really to disconnect kids from reality, that they're not good enough as they are. They need superpowers, or they need to be energized in a different way, or they need to use magic because God didn't give them their own creativity. God didn't give them their own gifts. God didn't give them their own talent. Well, I got news for you. All kids are amazing. All kids are born creative. All kids have amazing talents. It's just finding those talents, and we can swing back to this because there's a great quote that says, I think it's Jane Austen, and she says, you're never too old to become what you could have been. And so if you're 30 or 40 or 50, your life's not over. You know what I mean? I mean, here I am, and I'm in my 50s, and we're just kind of getting rolling with Britfield,
Yep.
And like part of me sits there and goes, why couldn't it have been 30 years ago? Or 20 years ago when I had a little more steam. But again, it's timing. But the play's great. So it's got roles for over 30 actors. It's got speaking roles for 30 actors. We include the 30 actors all the way through the play. We create the world of England, starting up in Yorkshire in the orphanage. And what's great about it is you have your main stage. You guys will appreciate this. And so you have your main scene. And then when the lights go down, we have another small scene coming up over here with the lights. And then when those go down, these come up, and then over here, another small scene. And then sometimes it's down in the aisle, where they're talking or they're walking, and they'll be walking right past you as part of that scene, or they'll be walking this way. And so we use
so cool.
It's really cool. It is so cool because we used I was kind of blown away because I was like sitting in the back and I was there for all 4 nights, and all of a sudden I see Tom and Sarah walking up the aisle talking as they're headed to this like place in London. And I just thought, oh, brilliant, you know. And then the Great Escape, and the fourth walls are never broken, but it's like you're suddenly like you're at Oxford. You know, we'll have students like talking with backpacks because they're now at Oxford because the balloon crashed at Oxford, and they're walking this way. Another student's over here with his sort of his black cape with a book running off to class, and it's like you feel like you're on the campus, and then the main scenes are taking place, and so it's very cool. We got 28 sound effects. We've got 54 digital slides. So if you want, and you have a small projector, you can actually project in the back of the scene. You don't need all these different scene changes. But all of a sudden, it's like when they're flying in the balloon, you can see these gorgeous pictures of England, you know, the rolling green hills and the little cottages and the lakes. When they're at Oxford, you can see High Street, or you can see the background of some of these beautiful stone buildings and stuff, or London. And so we have all these digital slides, and it's turnkey. You know, you go to Britfield.com website, it's turnkey, it's designed turnkey. It's like we have the director's notes, we have the director's script, we have the actor's script, we have the sound effects, everything that you can just download right there. And with the director's notes, we literally walk you through every single scene of everything that's needed for that scene, how to do the lighting, the sound effects, all the cues. And then the director's script, as you're familiar, any directors out there, you know, for school, it tells all the cues, you know, when to cue it, when to get it, when to set it up. And with that said, you know, it's up to the directors. It's like, you know, if you have a creative vision for it, take it, you know. So, but we want to set it up so you guys can understand how to do it and stuff. So it's cool. What's great about it is, you know, you could have a small black box theater. You could actually do this in a library if you wanted to, or you could just do it as a read through. You know, hey class, you know, for like this, you know, 3 weeks, we're gonna actually act out, but you could be even sitting. You know, you don't need to do it that way. All the different roles in this, you know, and just act it out. I mean, bring great quality content into the schools. And what's great about it is it's educational. They're going to learn about England and all these different places in England and history. We tie in beautiful history from the Stuarts to the Tudors to the Windsors. You know, it's all in there. And so it's fun.
And so I got to ask, so you said all the roles are speaking? I mean, there's at least 30, a little bit.
30 of them.
Yeah. That's just it. Like we have 30 actors and 30 speaking roles. And so, you know, like at some of the orphans before the breakout, we have some characters there that are talking, and then all of a sudden they change costume and they're cops. They're chasing them, you know. And so it's cool. And it was really fun. What was his name? I think it was Nathan. And when I first went there for the auditions in August 2000, was last year. Yeah, August last year. Then I sat back because I didn't want any interference with the auditions. It was, you know, the director said, "Hey, you can let me know," and I'm like, "No, it's your game. I'm just here, you know, to support." And there's a little cute kid. It's like he was in 4th grade, and he came to audition, and he was leaving, and then he came back and he hugged me, and it was so sweet. And I didn't realize. I'm like, okay. And then and then the night of, you know, the performance and stuff, he finally came up and he said, "Thank you so much." He goes, "I love this book series," and he goes, "They never really cast 4th graders, and I was just praying and praying and praying that I could be in this you know, in this production." And he goes, "And I was cast, and I'm so excited." And this little 4th grader had speaking roles, and he was amazing. You know, he was incredible. You know, and he memorized. I wouldn't have done that in 4th grade. Are you kidding me? I'd have been like frozen. You know, like I'm like not going anywhere near it and stuff. So it's so cool. And it was interesting. Michelle's been doing this for over 10 years, and she's done over 80 plays, mostly musicals. And she goes, "This is the first time that the students actually had to come together and work harder to support one another." And I thought, wow, that's really interesting, because usually with a musical, what happens is you have the music cues, you know, and it's like they'll cue the music and everyone starts to set up or get in their places. You didn't have that. And so everyone was working together and saying, you know, "Tom, you got to get up there." And, you know, "Melissa, you know, your role's coming up." And they were all working and setting up and moving chairs and stuff like that. And it's so simple to stage. And that's the idea, because the play is everything, right? It's the story, it's the play. Right. So it's not like elaborate scenes. Literally, you have 8 to 10 wooden chairs. You have a desk, you have a door frame, a window frame, and a couple boxes, and you've got your whole stage set ready to go. And the costuming is mostly current clothing, maybe a couple extra things here and there. So it's even economical.
Well, and what I love about it is you said this, and you know, I watched an interview with you and Bull Polney and another one with Grassroots, I forget, Army, And there was, I forget which one it was, but what I love about the 30 roles, and they're all speaking, you never know that one moment where a kid gets a chance to shine and it changes his or her entire life. And it's such a beautiful thing that even the how this is orchestrated between the film and the book and now the play, that it helps inspire and let people shine and find their, I haven't even read it yet, and I'm so excited about it. I just applaud you and whoever helped make it into a play, that you're giving kids a chance to shine, because that literally can be a catalyst. I mean, I never did theater when I was a kid. I got into it later, but man, if you give a kid a chance, that could be a complete catalyst for their entire life. And that's what it sounds like you're doing. It's amazing.
And you're right. And you're right. You never know what it will be or what it is that sparks a kid's interest. And we could talk about that in a minute. And it reminds me of when I was like 18, 19, I was involved with a professional improvisation group, much like Whose Line Is It Anyway? And we would meet Thursdays and Sundays for 3 hours up in LA. And to this day, 30 years later, 35 years later, still some of my favorite memories ever. And I'll be just walking along or doing something, and I'll remember one of those nights where everybody was on, and you guys can relate to that. And it was a night where you could do no wrong. And it was incredible. Like every scene was fantastic. Every scene was funny. And, like even now, 35 years later, it's like, I mean, thank God for those opportunities. And theater helps you break through a lot of those things. You know what I mean? Those fears, that most of those fears are false. And as I say, it's like next to death, public speaking. And that was something I had to come over. I had to get over, and I knew where I was headed and some of the things I wanted to do. And I'm like, and I'd be honest, like when I was younger, I'd take a D if it meant I didn't have to get up in front of the class. I was terrified. And now it's like, of course, I could care less. But and Toastmasters helped break me free of that, But and then improv. Once you go into improv, it's like forget it. It's like meaning like it's like you get up there so many times and you sort of fail so many times, and you're thrown into so many awkward situations that like nothing matters. But to come back to what you're saying, it's just like a child doesn't know what they can do until they're given a chance to do it. So.
Well, and there's so much value in the collaborative effort of it, especially for something. Like telling a story. I mean, storytelling is fundamental to human beings. We've been doing it since we could take a charred stick and draw a picture. I mean, it's an ancient tradition, and when it's collaborative like that, I think it can light a spark that in the world that we're living in today, it tends to be more isolating, and that kind of collaboration really encourages something magic. And
agreed. And it's funny you talk about.
I've never heard this approach where you can package that opportunity in a way that you can. Who's going to say no to that? You're facilitating a potentially life-changing experience, but at least an entertaining experience.
Sure.
Just like that.
Yeah, and even after those 4 nights, we had it 92 pages, and we got it down to 87. And you guys can appreciate, like, that's a lot. Yeah. And so, after that 4 nights, it was great, very successful, but we even streamlined it, tightened it, brought in another team. And so what you have right now is just the fact, as I've been writing the movie script, I've hired someone to write the movie script, but as we're going through the 3rd draft, we're almost done now, I'm using the play as my guideline.
Oh,
because believe it or not, because what I had to do with the play is I had to take a 384-page book and get it down to 90 minutes, which meant I had to cut a lot and get it down to what's the absolute core scenes, what are the core lines, what has to be in there. And so to me, that's been the base for the movie. And then we have an extra 40 or 50 pages, which is great because it's a movie, and you can do a lot more with a movie than a play. But even today, I was going through it, and I was flipping through my play, looking at making sure I had all the right dialogue and everything was in there, because I spent 18 months on it. It was so fine tuned and so polished, because you can write something, and you can edit it a million times on your laptop or computer, but you got to print it and start editing it that way because it reads and looks differently. You guys can relate to that. I actually found out the hard way on book 1. I had like this beautiful draft, and then I started to print it, and I'm like, dear goodness, it's like, like I used the word jump like 6 times in this paragraph, which is stuff you don't think you'll catch.
Right.
And so, now that's a trademark. In fact, what I'll start doing Thursday, now that the movie script is through its 3rd draft, I've got it tight. I went from 169 to 150 pages. So I cut out 18, 19 pages from an already tight thing. I start my paper edit Thursday, and I'll print out 3 to 5 pages at a time and start reading it now. This is the movie script. I'll be reading it out loud, make sure that the dialogue sounds right, that it flows right, but the structure, everything that we want is in it now and stuff. So it's a process. I mean, I'll have another 150 hours just in the movie script, and I didn't write it. I had someone else write the script, and it's the price that quality takes. And I kind of wanted to say that tonight, because it's like everybody wants it now. We're in a society where it's like, gosh, if you got to wait for 5 minutes, and it's like nothing happens that way. That's not real. That's not realistic. Now Hollywood wants to make you think that. Yeah, the marketing people want to make you think that. You deserve it. Why? What have you done to deserve it? You know what I mean? Like, how have you earned it? Why? Right. Why should you get this? You know what I mean? Like, how hard have you worked? And it takes years, it takes decades, it takes thousands and thousands of hours to get things the way they need. I mean, 4 years and 2,500 hours. Book 2 took me 5 years and 3,000 hours, to finish it. And I'm a little bit quicker now, a little bit more streamlined, but it takes thousands of hours for me to write a book. And I think that's the norm for the industry, for the professional industry, for people that are out there, because you become a better writer, but then you're more stringent, and to sort of encapsulate that as a great comment from Hemingway that says, I spent half the morning figuring out if I was going to put a comma in or take it out. I love that, because I can relate to that. You're writing in something, you can be stuck like on one sentence or one paragraph for like 30 minutes, and you're reworking it.
Yep.
And so you become a better writer, but then you become a lot more picky, if you will, a lot more stringent. And yeah. So anyway,
can you give us a little insight and maybe some of the feedback you've gotten from students? Because I know that there's letters that people have sent you, just to show the impact that you've had and what these kids have said to you.
Yeah, I'd love to share that.
Please.
I got this just over the weekend. It's from a 14-year-old, Sarah, and I wrote back to her yesterday, and it was just really sweet. Her English assignment was to write her favorite author a letter. Wow. And I thought, and she goes, and I picked you, and I thought, cool, and it was just really sweet. But this is the one I love. There was another school. I got this about 3 weeks ago, and it was 4 letters from this one class at one school that they're supposed to find their favorite author. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, in today's, with all the competition out there, what a privilege that is. And it's very interesting too, because it's like one of them said, I love Britfield the Lost Crown, book 1, that's my favorite. And then the other one said, I love Britfield and the Rise of the Lion, that's my favorite, book 2. But this is from Nathan, and I just got to read you this one. Well, actually, I'll read you one little line. But he says, the entire Britfield series was very interesting and enjoyable to me, but I definitely liked Britfield and Return to the Prince the most out of all your 3 books. I liked it because the storytelling and the plot was amazing, and the way it was described was great. Sometimes, because the book was so good, one could forget they're reading a book.
Oh, man.
Like, wow. So I'll share these real quick with you, though. This is literally from all over the world. So it says, my 8-year-old daughter is reading Britfield and cannot put it down. It's truly one of the best books I've ever read. It reminds me of why reading is so great. Thank you for publishing such a wonderful book. My name is Gideon. I live with my family in Eastern Germany. There is a great need for wholesome stories in the world, and I'm a big fan of the Britfield books. It has suspense, action, mystery, and history. Thank you for your excellent books. I'm 72 years old and find them delightful. That's Mary from Canada. Our whole family loves the Britfield books. They've been truly encouraging to my son, who recently passed away. There's another one. My daughter, Amanda, has been glued to the new book and has finished it in a week, and she can't put it down. She's 11 and loves reading. Thank you from her for writing the best book she says she has ever read to date. That's from Ashley in England. And it goes on and on and on. So I'll just share some of that stuff with you. But these are the kind of letters that we get from around the world, and it's amazing. I will share this one with you. It's really cool.
Please.
Yeah, this is good. This is from Louisiana. So this is from a librarian. She goes, we have an 8th grade student who's a very reluctant reader. Countless teachers and librarians have tried to get a book in his hands for years. Yesterday, his mother saw me and shouted, "You're the teacher that finally got my son to read, all because of the Britfield book." She told me it's the first book he has read and enjoyed his entire life. Thanks again for all that you do.
Wow.
Amazing,
Talk
right?
about rewarding.
Wow.
I'll bet you didn't experience much of that in investment banking.
No, I wouldn't get those kind of letters.
Of course, it probably didn't take 2,500 hours, to for any of those tasks. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's boy, I commend you, sir. That's tremendous.
Yeah, so some of the stuff that we're seeing and impacting that we get back, and again, too, it's threads, and often you can gauge a lot. It's like when you do statistics. If you want to gauge 100,000 people, you test 10,000. Do you know what I'm saying? You don't need to test 100,000. And so you can gauge from certain letters that we're hitting our audience, or we're having impact. It's interesting too, when we did the play, my sister, who lives in San Diego, was promoting it on her Facebook site. And she had a friend from 10 years ago that lives in Kansas, and contacted my sister and said, she goes, "Oh my gosh," she goes, "CR Stewart's your brother?" She goes, "We just moved to Kansas. We're part of a homeschool group, and they just recommended Britfield and Lost Crown to me." And so we get those kind of threads that are really cool. I surprised, I don't know if this is on the interviews, but through a friend of a friend, I was contacted about 6 weeks ago from a couple that live local, and they say, Eva, their daughter's turning 13. She goes, "You're her favorite author. She's read all the Britfield books multiple times. Is there any way you could surprise her for her birthday and have lunch with us?" So I showed up at the restaurant, and she was like blown away, and it was so much fun. We sat there for 2.5 hours just talking, and so because of the Britfield books, her parents just took her to France and Italy, and so she was sharing her book with me of all the places that are in Britfield that she went. And there's scenes like at Chambord Castle in Loire River Valley, where she's in one of the bedrooms, because that's in the book, and she's pointing under the bed where they had thrown a smoke bomb, and she's like right there and stuff. And it was just so I was bringing the world to life to her and inspired that kind of traveling. And she goes, she's now writing her own travel book, adventure novel, based, influenced by Britfield. She's writing her own novel. She's on chapter 13 now.
What?
And so she's writing her own book, and she's created her own Britfield book club. And she gets together with her friends, once a week, and they talk about the books and act out scenes.
Wow.
That's so cool. I love that kids are telling you that there's a need for books with morals and ethics, etc. And could you expand on that a little bit about, the education system and maybe how that's been tampered with, or whatever direction you want to go with that? But I think
it's interesting too, because for us, it's you'd think retail is our focus, and retail is not our focus. We have a major business plan. We have a 25-year strategy, frankly, and retail is is tier 3 for us. And so our beachhead, our number one focus has always been schools and education. Our beachhead is elementary, middle schools, which is why we did the tour. To get out across the nation into schools, and we visited every possible school out there. I mean, I was at one of the top private schools in LA, where a lot of the actors, kids go, in a major auditorium with 430 students, with a movie screen behind me, because my presentations were very interactive, if you will, and through a PowerPoint, with trailers and all kinds of fun stuff, to a small Title I school in Texas, to a one-room Christian school in Montana that I got to in a snowstorm, to, you name it, all-girls school, all-boys school. We did a top Muslim school in Dallas. where it was 100 boys all in gray on one side and 100 girls all in gray on the other side, which was a very interesting experience coming into it because you weren't sure what to expect. But kids are amazing, and all of a sudden the hands went up and great questions, and then afterwards they were coming up and asking me, and it was incredible. And so, but no, it's I don't know how much time we have, but I mean it's kind of a whole other thing to cover. But the public system was based and founded on the industrial model, and so it's a 19th century industrial model, really to prepare kids to work in factories, and it's a factory model, and that model today has not changed. Now the educational system has evolved and has changed in many good ways, meaning like homeschool or charter or other things. But I think two things about the educational system. Number one, we're in a educational reformation, much like Martin Luther 500 years ago. What you're seeing right now in the educational system is the beginning of the end of the traditional educational system. It's even really based on a socialistic model. And really what they've done is they've educated creativity out of the classroom. And so what we're trying to do with Britfield series is bring creativity back into the classroom. We're not focused on the group, we're focused on the individual kids. We're trying to bring individuality back into the classroom, that every child is talented. So this sort of group think can go out the door. You know what I mean? Because that's a communistic model. And really the system has become overtly communist. Call an ace an ace, call it what it is. And it's interesting to touch on this, and I can give you guys some statistics if we have some time, because it's very fascinating.
Yeah,
but
we have time. We have another 15 minutes of
okay.
our agreed upon time.
It's worth it. Yeah, it's worth it.
It's worth it.
So when I was on this school tour, and it was amazing too, and it was incredible. It's kind of a once in a lifetime experience because I'm an older guy driving around the United States coming to schools. You know what I mean? And it's just and it's backbreaking. It's hard. Like Texas, like we're driving 4 or 5 hours to get to the next school. And then you come into your little hotel, and then it's boom. But it was really cool. I was just driven by it, and the kids were incredible. I mean, I'd be doing book signings, and I'd be there for like an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours doing book signings, a line of 80 kids to get a signed book. I mean, that's assuming 80 kids read, right? And so that was amazing. And I'd just be talking to them about, what are you reading and how often you read and what do you like? And, we learned a ton. So, there was a lot of reasons we did the school tour. One was obviously to launch the brand, Grassroots Network. But really behind that was I was really interested to see the educational systems out there, to get a feel for it, boots on the ground. I've done all the research, I've heard about it, but I'd come to school sometimes an hour early, and I just talk with the librarian for 45 minutes, talk shop, talk books, what's out there, what are you seeing, what do kids read, talk to teachers, and then talk to tens of thousands of kids. And what's your favorite story and why you like that, and how often you read, and do you like digital books, do you like ebooks, do you like hardcover, softcover? But I was in Memphis, Tennessee, just did 4 schools Monday, Tuesday, back to back, when this whole nonsense had happened, 2020, and all the schools were closing. I was like, oh no, it's and I spent so long to get there. I wanted to get to the heart of America. I couldn't wait to get to Kentucky and Indiana and Ohio. You know what I mean? The librarian homeschool breadbasket of education. You know what I mean? And I had to turn around and drive all the way back. And so as I was driving back, based on all my research, I was thinking to myself, I said, it was very interesting to see how many kids or how many parents will be sending their kids back to school once this whole nonsense is over. And people would say, what are you talking about? And I said, what do you think it is? 5%, 10%? And I was basing it on 3 things. Number one, for the first time, parents would be horrified by what their kids are being taught in classrooms and in school. The filth that's being brought in there, all the way down to 3 to 4 to 5-year-olds. I mean, just horrified. Number 2, how far behind their kids were in certain subjects that they frankly shouldn't be. And number 3, how quickly a child, if uninterrupted, on their own, could complete their assignments for the day, an entire 8-hour day within 2 to 3 hours, and then have the rest of the day to, I don't know what, grow up, at 8 years old, go out and play, have fun, do something creative, paint, write, play a musical instrument, get your building blocks. I started with building blocks when I was younger. And guess what I did to put myself through my Ivy League college when I was back east? I started an architectural firm and development company, and I did that for 8 years. I put myself through college, from the building blocks to building a fort to designing, and remodels and custom homes, right? That stuff matters. And so also I started seeing statistics coming out that 20 to 30% of parents aren't sending their children back to traditional schools. And so we are right now in an educational reformation. We're in a homeschool revolution. We've gone from 5 million homeschoolers to, I would now say, about 20 million homeschoolers across the nation. That's amazing. And I'll say this about homeschooling. The most well-educated children I've ever met in my life are homeschooled. The stigma of homeschooling is done. It's over. It's gone. It's out the door. I saw this great meme a couple of years ago, and it said, our impression of homeschool moms last year, and it had this like 6 women on this. It looked Amish women, like with these like tall, like gray, right, with their hair in a bun, and it said our impression of homeschool moms last year, and they said our impression of homeschool moms this year, and it was a snapshot from Wonder Woman, the movie, with the sword, and the shield. Yeah. I just thought that's the coolest thing ever. I put it up on my Facebook site, and it's like the most likes and shares I've ever gotten. But it's so true, right? But the best educated kids I've seen are homeschool kids. I mean, they're well-rounded, they're grounded, they're smart, they're well-read, they're well-educated, they're creative, they know how to ask questions, they're not antsy, and they're often about 2 to 3 years ahead of most kids in subjects. Fact, and you can say, my kid's not a genius. No one's a genius, really. The most average kids, it's just when you're given that opportunity, the system is the most unnatural system out there. To put 8 or 9 year olds, in a institution, because that's what it is, for 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, is crazy. And you're wondering why they're antsy. Are you kidding me? I will share
with your family, right? Isn't that the goal? I mean,
oh, absolutely. And that's why I said it's the most natural. I have to remember this. I was going to share my favorite story, if you guys don't mind.
No,
not
at all.
Okay.
I'm just thinking of a Rockefeller quote where he says, "I don't need thinkers, I need workers."
Yeah.
And
there you go.
That was the most.
And that's the motto.
Yeah,
and so look, the traditional public system, and don't get me wrong, there's thousands of great teachers out there. I always like to give them great praise. It is a calling, and I don't envy you getting up every day and having to teach 4th graders, or 5th graders in high school. Forget it. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't pay me enough to get in that classroom. Yeah. So you guys are really fighting the good fight, and a lot of you are in a position that you don't have a choice. And but I think there's a lot of choices out there, and I think as the homeschool movement grows, they need great teachers. And the thing about the homeschool movement is, keep this in mind, it's not about the fact anymore that a parent has to stay home if you're both working. There are so many different options. So instead of dropping them off at school, you can drop them off at a homeschool group that's local or nearby, or a charter system that's involved in the homeschool. Or maybe once you get with 5 other parents, and once a week you stay home, and you maybe work 30 hours, or maybe you work 40 hours and you work 10-hour days, or I don't know, whatever. But there's ways to make it work. But the point is you can't afford not to. Your child at that age is so impressionable. It is so important, especially that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, to give them the best opportunities and not have them being exposed to this stuff. And so it's over. The public system's over. It's been exposed, and it's going down. Look, it could take another 3 to 5, 10 years, but it's over. It's the beginning of the end of this horrific educational system that's been controlled by, really, let's be honest, communists. And getting creativity out of classrooms. And there was a test that was done years ago by a gentleman by the name of George Land, and he developed this test for huge. He actually developed it for NASA. Whole other story, but it was to teach these astronauts, because they were analytical, mathematical, but they had to be creative. They had to be able to brainstorm, think on their feet. And he took the same test, and he kind of transitioned it into the school systems, and he tested 5-year-olds across the board, across the nation, 5-year-olds, and they were testing at 98% creativity. Brilliant geniuses. So that means out of every 100 5-year-olds, 98 were testing off the charts, as you would expect with 5-year-olds, because they're born creative. They're God's gift. He tested that same group at 10. That score dropped down to 30%. And then he tested that same group at 15. It dropped down to 12%. And so what you saw is you went from 98 to 10% in 10 years, all based on the educational system. They were teaching creativity out of kids. And the other thing about a couple myths to knock out of the park here. We don't use 10% of our brain; we use all of our brain, and the brain is amazing how it functions. When you're in a creative zone, it actually creates, and sparks the synapses and does really cool things. That it calms you, takes away stress, it energizes you, and it's when you often are in your zone. In 10 minutes, 2-3 hours can go by and it feels like 10 minutes. Creativity is an amazing thing. It's an incredible thing. We're all born to be creative in one way or the other. Genetics, that's another bunk science. That's junk science. He was born intelligent or born smart. There's a very, very small percentage that might, from certain family traits, might be better at mathematics or might be better at engineering, and it's a very small percentage. And if it's not captured by the age of 8 or 10, it doesn't matter. So the fact that they were born dumb, no, they weren't, or they were born stupid, no, they weren't. They all have talents, and what they're doing is they're putting all these subjects, mathematics, at the top. Who cares about mathematics? I mean, set aside from basic mathematics, why are we still teaching mathematics in high school and college, unless you want to be a mathematics teacher? You know what I mean? It's like I was in banking and architecture and building, and I never needed anything beyond basic math. And I'm not knocking math, but I'm saying you don't need to teach it for 8 years, because it's irrelevant. It's like teaching me to be a car mechanic because I want to go out and start a pastry shop. It's like, no, put me in a pastry shop and let me learn my trade. You know what I mean?
Well, and they don't make it exciting. I mean, math is the language of the universe, but no one ever told me that, so I had zero interest. And then I became a teacher. I was a high school teacher, and what I taught science, and I was a career tech coordinator, but I used creativity to keep the kids interested.
There you go.
It's a big challenge. And I had often 4 or 5 kids from other classes coming into my class with a note from the teacher to sit in and out of my class because they wanted to learn something. They were excited to be there, and they were bored to tears in the other classrooms. So there's an opportunity there. It's not the kids. Their minds.
Yeah, it's not, and we all learn differently. You know what I mean? I'm more of a hands-on person. Some people are book knowledge. Some people can be taught and listen. But we learn in all those ways, visually and through sounds and through physical. So you can't just teach all kids one way, because they're all very different. But I'll share this story, and it exemplifies everything I've talked about. It's one of my favorite stories. I got this from Sir Ken Robinson, one of the best TED Talks you'll ever see in your life. It's called it's 2006 TED Talk in Montreal with Sir Ken Robinson, Our Schools Killing Creativity. And so he gets up there for 18 minutes, knocks it out of the park. And it's the most downloaded, most watched TED Talk ever. And you have to ask yourself why. Right. And so he ends it on this note. And he was writing a book on how successful people started. And he starts with Gillian Lynn. And Gillian Lynn was a choreographer in London, and who is known now for Cats and Phantom of the Opera. And when she was younger, 8, 9, 10 years old, she was having trouble in school. In fact, the teachers actually thought that she had a learning disorder, and she was late with work, and she'd be fidgety and get into trouble at school. And so her mom said, the teacher said, take her to a specialist. And so she took her to a specialist, and some moms kind of sat out of the room. The specialist was there sitting with her. She was on a couch, kind of sitting on her hands. She's 10 years old. And he talked to her about 20, 30 minutes. He said, okay, Jillian, just stay here. I'm going to go talk to your mom for a couple of minutes. We'll be right back. And before he left, he turned on the music. And so he left the room. And they're kind of looking through this window. And Jillian got up and started kind of moving around. And Mrs. Lynn said, what's wrong with her? And he says, there's nothing wrong with your daughter. She's a dancer. Take her to a dance class. And so he did. She did take him to dance class. And she was interviewed later, and she said, what was it like? And she said, it was fantastic. She goes, it was people like me, people that had to move to think, people that had to move to think. And they did tap, and they did jazz, and they did ballet. And so she eventually auditioned for the Royal Ballet. She became a soloist. She had an incredible career, the Royal Ballet. Sorry. Started her own school, did that for 20 years, taught thousands of children and students. Eventually met Andrew Lloyd Webber, was involved in Cats and Phantom of the Opera, some of the most successful musicals in history. She brought entertainment and excitement to millions of people, and she's a multimillionaire. Someone else would have put her on medication and told her to sit down and shut up. So
that is so true.
Sorry, just I love that story.
Oh, it's an amazing story.
Me too. I'm crying.
Yep, there's such an opportunity here. Humans are magical things. Amazing.
But it's just such a great story. It's like, today it's just like you got to get them on this and get them on that and stuff, and it's like you don't need to get them on anything. Number one, get away the fruit, the fruit stuff that they're on, or the candy, or the soda pops, or all of that kind of stuff. It's like, but it's a great, it exemplifies, because we're all different. That particular girl, she was a dancer, and she was born to be a dancer, and she had a successful career and an amazing career. And some of us are writers, some of us are builders, some of us are engineers, some of us are all these different things. You can't put us in a box. That's why the funny thing about the SAT test, which is the watermark of all achievement in the educational system, doesn't measure anything.
Right.
And it tests us on things that are relevant that we'll never use. The SAT test was designed in the model of the educational system. And the educational system was based on a 19th century factory model. The SAT test was actually developed by a gentleman that developed it for the military, and he spent 5 years trying to make it work, and it failed, and he eventually abandoned the test because it was a failure. It failed to do what he wanted it to do, and eventually it was developed into the educational system as their watermark. This is the truth behind all the things. The IQ test, it was designed to do the absolute opposite. It was designed to find deficiencies in people, not measure how intelligent they were, because intelligence isn't linear. And the other thing about intelligence too is it changes. And you could take an IQ test at 10 years old and score a certain amount, and then 3 years later you could score 50 points more, 20 points more, 30 points more. Meaning that the brain changes all the time. And those creativity scores that were down at 10%, those can go all the way up to 98%. You don't lose, although you might lose your creativity, you can get it back really quickly. And you could be 50, 60, 70 years old, and you could be at 90, 95% creativity. It just takes time to get it back, take time to work it back. So again, it's everything that we've learned, the stats, the statistics, the parameters, is all lies. It's all crap, Yeah,
Rudolf Steiner developed the Waldorf school around the idea that, you need to look at the person, what are their what are their passions, right, and let that fuel their education. And I think that it's time to revisit that for sure.
I had a privilege of being at one of those schools in Boulder, Colorado, on our tour. It was pretty cool.
Oh.
It's cool. Wow. It's cool when you come in and just see it. You could feel it immediately, right? My first homeschool experience was in Reno, Nevada. And it was funny too, because I just did like 6 schools back to back over a couple of days, big auditoriums and stuff. And all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we have this homeschool farm in Carson, Nevada. And I'm like, okay, it's like, whatever. And I'm driving there with a friend, that had set everything up, and we come to this gate. It's a really neat farm. And I always love this experience because it personifies everything. First impression that I got when I was driving up is I saw 6 or 7 boys playing basketball together from ages 10 to probably 17. And I thought, when's the last time you've seen boys of different ages play basketball together at recess? Never.
Right.
Never. And it was amazing, because it was the older guys that were looking out for the younger ones. Right. And so suddenly they had a leadership role, and the younger ones that had someone to look up to. And I parked, and this little 12-year-old girl comes out dressed nice, hair pulled back. And she says, "Are you Mr. Stewart?" And I said, "Yes." And she put her hand out and shakes my hand and says, "Thank you so much for coming." And that was my greeting. And I thought that's a future senator. I'm like, that's a future CEO. And it was just amazing. And all the kids, were sitting on all these mixed mass chairs for my presentation of all these different ages and groups and stuff. And it was great. It wasn't like all 12-year-olds are in here, all 13-year-olds are in there, all 4, you know what I mean? And it's just, that was my first experience. And I saw it working. And I have no personal stock in the homeschool movement, but when you see a model that works, when you see a model that's as natural or close to how education's supposed to be,
right.
I did some interviews last year where we're doing kind of developing this whole thing of the one house or the one room schoolroom, you know what I mean, on the prairie, where you had all the different students that were together, studying at different, grade levels or whatever it was, but the teacher, and they were all in the same classroom, interacting and talking and learning and sharing at different ages and stuff. And, that was a very natural type of thing. Or, it was on the farm where the parents, or the mom educated the children, and incredible. So.
Well, what has been incredible is having you on the show, and your brilliant mind and your passion for children and humanity. And frankly, your touching stories. I mean, wow. Anything you want to end on, and where people can find any more information? Obviously, I think I know what the website is, but please go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just it's support us, check out the website, buy the books. It's great for us. If you buy on the website, you get signed copies, and I'm still signing them while I still have time, which is great. I mean, we're available on Amazon. I think they're great gifts. If you're a parent for your kids or for grandkids, I think they're great gifts for you. I think they're great Christmas gifts for anyone. And so we just did an interview on the Hagman Report. If you guys are familiar with Doug Hagman, he's awesome, out of Pennsylvania. And that was a lot of fun. But we got like orders from all over the nation for our trilogy set, which was really cool, and all the way to Australia and Canada and you name it. So but no, I think that to end on is that I do think that all kids are born amazing, and they're all born with creativity and talent. And but you have to give them as many opportunities as possible to find what sticks. And I was no ace student when I was younger, and I knew the principal by name. You know what I mean? Like, I was sent up there a lot. I got in trouble. But it was a 6th grade teacher that gave us an assignment, and our assignment was worth 30% of our grade, and we had to write a book. And it was like 25 pages, and literally write it, but you could do a paragraph and a picture. And that was daunting. But what do you write about? You write about what you love, and you write about what you know. And I love James Bond movies. And so my first official book was James Bond, Eat Your Heart Out, 12 years old. I was a 12-year-old agent working for the British government. And I lived in this Tudor-style mansion down in Hampshire. And I had a red Ferrari, of course. And this will date me, but you guys will appreciate this. My partner was Jacqueline Smith from Charlie's Angels. Oh, yeah. And like, so she's literally in it. We have dialogue, and it's like funny. And I was assigned to capture this villain that was terrorizing, and running through Europe. And it was amazing. It was fun. And those seeds were planted. I didn't finish it and say I want to be a novelist, but those seeds were planted because I was given an opportunity to reach inside me, and produce. And so if the kid wants to play a musical instrument, you don't have to go out and buy it, rent it. And if he gets burned out of the trumpet within 3 or 4 weeks, fine, then get him another one. Get him a violin, or get him a flute, or maybe he doesn't want to play a musical instrument. Okay, he wants to paint. All right, you get buy some paper and a couple paints and an easel, and let him go to town. And if he gets burned out on that, that's fine. You now know what he doesn't want to do. Or maybe 5 years from now, he can pull it back out because he remembers it. I'm just saying, and I'm not throwing money at it. You don't need a lot of money. It doesn't take a lot of money to go to the library with your kid every week or every other week for an hour and pick out 1 or 2 really cool books, or to spend time with them walking along, the beach or the park, or looking at trees, or going to the city and looking at some of the architecture and talking about it, going to the museum. When you go to the museum, you don't go to the museum for 3 or 4 hours. That would bore me. Spend an hour there, go in 1 or 2 rooms, and say, pick your favorite painting and tell me why, and sit around and have them look at it, and then discuss it, and then go out and get an ice cream or a hamburger, afterwards, and make it a fun event. Hey, Mom, when are we going to the museum again? It's like, really, I mean, just, and that stuff's free or very inexpensive. Give them as many of those impressions and experiences that you can, because I mean, scientifically, it's the impact. It's like you take them to the tide pools, every month, and you guys walk around and you look at the starfishes and stuff, and suddenly, 10 years from now, they're marine biologists because of that, so.
Beautiful. We'll hang out afterwards, and we just want to let the viewers know it's an honor to do this for you, and we are supported from our viewers, and sometimes we don't say that enough, and we'll have our links below. Anything else you want to say at this point?
Well, I'm just overwhelmed by a wonderful interview.
Yeah. Thank you.
But I hope our audience is as touched as I am.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody. Appreciate you.
fighting